I think if it was 20 years down the line, there'd be a lot more people there. You would be stopping them coming in because that's when it's going to bite. It's not biting now, and people will think, oh, we'll carry on as usual. So I hope nobody objects to filming, because there's a lot of councillors who couldn't come from the Labour Party, not necessarily their own fault, but those people we want to be able to put on YouTube to show what people's opinions are. The idea is people's power and democracy, that we are not peasants and we have a say in what's happening in Paris. We should anyway, and the government should listen. So I am going to go to Downing Street with the copies, and I'm going to get these forms that you've seen. If you could write them neatly, because I'm not going to retype them, I want them to be authentic. One's going to the Climate Change Minister, and one is going to the Prime Minister, about what we think should happen here, locally, nationally, what can happen, and internationally. But why am I here? Well, that's my talk. I have some qualification to talk about this, because I did write a book over 13 years on green spirituality, and I wrote a chapter on climate change. So I have done a lot of research on this. And I've been a green activist for about 30 years, and I'm also a Buddhist, so I have a moral imperative, according to Buddhism, to relieve suffering. That's what you do as a Buddhist. So I see suffering in the future, and I'm trying to prevent it, especially my granddaughter, who's 20 months old. She's going to be within that 100 years framework. So I see climate change really as a spiritual crisis, really, because it's a crisis of sort of spiritual values, really, to me. We've forgotten the next generation. And I would say that it's a moral imperative, and I'm really pleased that the Pope is flagging it up now as a moral issue for the future. I would just say, what will they say in 100 years' time? They'll probably say, why did we suffer so much ignorance, greed, delusion, and lack of action to lead us into this state now? Also, I would say, why do we carry on with a capitalist system that's destroying the planet and its peoples, when it needs to adapt to have more socialist principles or change entirely? So that's my standpoint. That's why I'm standing here. Right, so what's going to happen? Climate change, I'm not going to go into the causes of, I'm just going to go to things I've picked up. I thought this was amazingly funny. Mass extinction, bushfires, severe drought. That's a warning sign. I want to just talk briefly about tipping points, and this is why we need action, because that is, the problem is that tipping points is where things go out of control and you can't return the atmosphere or a situation that was before. So I'm just going to go through a few tipping points that could happen, and these could happen in the next. Baking yachts, that's already started melting ice. In 10 years they reckon it may. Greenland ice sheets melting. The collapse of the West Antarctic ice sheet, collapse of the Atlantic, the Gulf Stream, Amazon forest dying off, forest fires. So these things, we must understand that we've got to prevent climate change as much as possible now, because we might reach a tipping point where we can't do anything about it in the future. People might not know that's happened, we don't know. But we do know of extreme weather. And we know that in the UK, extremely wet winters have become much more normal, 5 times more likely in the next 100 years. And what we also know is there's going to be more intense downpours. You've seen that, I've seen it on my bike, and cyclists will know, you suddenly get pelted with loads of water. Flash floods, river flooding, sea level rises. So, you've got declining some of those. You've got two ends of a spectrum, really: drought and wet. Too much water. That's what's happening throughout the world, and it's reflected in the UK. So there's increased evaporation. There's water shortages and restrictions on usage. By the 2050s, in this country, 59 million people will be affected by lack of water, particularly when they build loads of houses in the southeast. So that's going to be a problem, because you can't take everything from the Lake District down south. Well, it'll be a very logistical problem. But there are sea level rises, and this is one of the projected scenarios for the UK with sea level rising. You can see how much of the country's gone. I couldn't find when this was happening, but it was a projected thing. So the United Nations scientists say that it's going to be between 26 and 82 centimetres by the 21st century, on top of the 19 centimetres already here by 1900. So these are all the ice melting all over and the glaciers melting. So this will result in food shortages because there's going to be less land to grow on, because actually a lot of land that's rich is alluvial soil that was very near seawater at the time, was recently come from the sea. You can think of the fen lands, for instance, very fertile lands, and a lot of them in China and countries like that where there's a big agricultural production. Of course, that will mean refugees. You think there's a refugees crisis now, there will be a refugee crisis even more in this country, because people will be fleeing areas where they can't grow enough food. So that is another problem. And cities such as New York, Miami, New Orleans, Shanghai, they're going to disappear if we don't do something about it. I cannot understand that New York being a financial centre, they can't understand they've got to do something about climate change, or they won't have a financial centre, they'll just be gone. So, there we go. New York, Miami, disappearing. Heat waves and drought. This is the sort of thing, death of cattle. That one there is very serious because it's corn. Corn is the third largest crop in the world, and half of it, most of it's fed to livestock, I know. But as regards the generation of food, it's very important. And forest fires, of course. So there's very hot summers in Europe. This is going to increase tenfold this century. And we know that heat waves in Russia killed 55,000 in 2010 and 66,000 in 2003 in Europe. So that's elderly people are going to be very, very affected. Again, crops are going to be introduced. I got this fact, I hope it's correct. The photosynthesis in crops stops more or less at 40 degrees. When you think that temperatures in the southeast of this country could be like Delhi in India within 100 years, perhaps. So we've got more food shortages. That's the most important thing that we've got to think about. So, that's what I was saying. Photosynthesis stops at 40. And floods, you're going to get both ways, drought and floods. We've seen that in the Somerset levels. They were completely flooded. 2013-14, the wettest winter for 250 years. More of the same if we don't do something about it. Hurricanes and typhoons are increasing in frequency. That is a problem for people dying unnecessarily. You've got typhoon hit Philippines only a short time ago. These are some of them. Typhoon Nargis, 2008, 440,000. Katrina, 2005, over 1,200 dead. And Haiyan, 11,000 killed in 2013. So what's happening is the whole climate system, which they don't understand, is being pumped with these greenhouse gases, and it's just like an upset stomach. It's just whirling it around, destabilising the whole climatic system, which we cannot control even with our technology, and that's what worries me. So, species loss. That is a very serious thing because we depend on biodiversity for our new food crops. They provide us with the food in the future. So ecosystems have to shift a hell of a lot of time. And this is a fact that came across about basically species. They have to move a hell of a lot of distance to adapt. A quarter of a mile per year to keep pace with global climate change, they reckon. Well, plants can't pull up their roots and move a quarter of a mile a year, but animals might be able to. So that's a problem for other species that we depend on for food and other things, raw materials. So about 50% of plants and 34% of animal species are likely to lose more than half the area which are climate suited to them by 2080s. 2080 seems to be where it's really going to kick in, particularly for Australia, which looks very serious, and particularly for Portugal and Spain and all that Mediterranean area. As the climate belts shift, there's going to be all these things, refugees, loss of food, people suffering unnecessarily. But I don't think we should be despondent, because we can do things. We get the local lobby governments to change priorities, which is what this is about. It doesn't matter to me whether 1, 10 or 1,000 people turn up. I feel better that I've got a grandchild, I've got people who are following me on this planet, and that I'm going to do my best to lobby the government and use what processes I can to change things. So they've got to have priorities. The sad thing is, I know people are busy, but it's obviously not a priority in their life to talk about climate change. We've got to consume less meat, because meat really drives climate change. You know, you're producing lots of greenhouse gases, producing all this food for cattle. You're just feeding it to cattle and eating the meat, which, you know, I eat fish, but I wouldn't eat meat because it's just destructive to the planet. We've got to travel low carbon. Think of ways of travelling: electric bikes, electric cars, non-polluting ways. Buy sustainable food and goods, and I'm pleased that Gareth is here from Community Supported Agriculture, because that is where local and Ali, of course, where local consumption can cut the carbon footprint, because I get my food from canal side, Community Foods. I don't have to get it from Argentina or Spain or wherever. I go down there and get my food, and it's provided locally. It's helping that ecosystem on that farm carry on. Consume and support low carbon systems. The trouble with this government is that they have tried to kill off solar and wind. They're not really helping. And it is a crime against our children's children. It's a crime that we're not investing more. We're an embarrassment to Europe when Germany has put so much in. Even Spain and other countries have put more into wind energy and solar, and we don't bother. Yet we have in the North Sea the best wind energy in the whole of Europe, just ready to. And that's the reason for the independence of Scotland. They'll probably rub their hands with glee and say, oh right, we've got all our wind energy, you know. But I think make our energy buildings more energy efficient. I think that would save a lot of our carbon footprint. They're just a few ideas, but there's a basic outline, maybe for debate later on. And Gareth is kindly going to write up some of the thoughts, and I hope you're going to fill in the forms, because I am going to take them to Downing Street, and I'm getting them widely distributed to other political parties as much as possible. As I say, from your email you did get a spectrum of opinion invited. Shame they didn't turn up, but we've got to keep on trying. We can't just leave it and say there's nothing we can do. We can do things. We can do things as individuals. We can do things as communities. We can change government. So on that note, I'm going to hand over for Peter from the Campaign Against Climate Change, which is an organisation that's focused on that over some years. Thank you very much.